Hey everybody, welcome to Bell Brothers Brewing, engineers talking about beers. This is Eddie and Curtis. I wanted to get in here real quick and get a note in before we start getting into the actual video. This is a bit of a different episode. It is the B3 Brew. We're going to focus more on the actual recipe and how we come up with that and how that affects the final beer result and the actual tasting. And we're going to stay away from really the actual brewing process, maybe a couple of clips here or there, but I wanted to stay away from that idea of the brew process and really give you an idea of how that recipe creates a final end result product. If you want to see more of the Bell Brothers go through a B3 brew day in hyperspeed and talk about our process, let us know in the comments. But otherwise, I wanted to give you an opportunity to just see start to finish really quickly without any of the extra stuff, just to see how we create a recipe based on BJCP guidelines. So the reason why we're here today is June's theme is American Pale Ales. First, we'd like to start with the BJCP guidelines. How do you want to say this, Cody?
What the accepted definition, I guess you could say, of that beer is, for the most part. I think that's really what all this comes down to, is these are accepted definitions of an entirely fluid concept. Beer is beer. Styles are a thing we apply to beer. It doesn't really... You can make anything and then work backwards and call it a style. I mean, there's styles in the guidelines that didn't exist. You know, there's a style, what's it called? The American Pale Lager is literally just coarse, but the whole style is literally, they made coarse and bud, it became popular, so they went backward and created a style that fits what exists. So styles are a fluid, or a concept, a categorization we use to give people an idea of what they're getting themselves into when they pick up a given beer.
Let's read the overall impression, just to kind of get an overview of what the American Pale Ale is, and then maybe we'll pick some pieces and parts out of that.
All right, so the overall impression of an American Pale Ale is a pale, refreshing, hoppy ale, with sufficient supporting malt to make the beer balanced and drinkable. A clean hop presence can reflect classic or modern American or New World hop varieties with a wide range of characteristics. An average strength hop forward pale American craft beer. Generally balanced to be more accessible than modern IPAs. Do you want to go ahead and translate that into something that makes sense to people who haven't read these guidelines a million times and know what the hell they're talking about?
Sure. So pale and refreshing hoppy ale means that we're leaning towards the hop bitterness, that we're not going to be doing any kind of specialty malts. So we're not looking to go into like really dark malts. Obviously, you shouldn't be using like Carafa 3, dark roast kind of craziness, right? So we're looking for slightly bitter and then sufficient supporting malt to make the beer balanced. So there's enough malt sweetness and backbone to the body or the beer itself that while there's bitterness, while there's still hoppiness, it's not overpowering, right? The last line is compared to the American IPA. American IPAs, right, are double, triple, crazy hop, excessive, right? They're crazy strong. An American Pale Ale is all about bringing that balance, bringing it back so that you can still enjoy the bitterness, but it's not out crazy and it's still accessible. American or New World, and the New World aspect of that means that we're looking at Centennial, Citra, or Cascade hops, right? The big 3 C's.
I think that's what they mean when they say they reflect classic American. And then the modern is when you're bringing in things like a Galaxy, the Yukonot, you know, those the more fruity tropical style hops, because you got your classic, you know, the 3 C's like you just did are your citrusy classic American style, more along the lines of a Sierra Nevada right here.
There you go. Yeah.
Traditional styles, you got Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. That's your classic Citrus Centennial Cascade style American Pale Ale. But at the same time, you can come back and use your Galaxies, your Eldorado, and a Amarillo are really good tropical fruit style hops that would still be within this style. That's the more modern American right here. When they say modern, they're referring to using more tropical fruit style hops. And then New World, I think, also encompasses New Zealand and Australian hops.
So I am going to point to a couple, or one more interesting section is the vital statistics. So the vital statistics section goes over a couple of really important pieces, right? The IBUs, which we've talked about in other videos, which is the International Bitterness Unit. And here it's supposed to be between 30 and 50. So 50 is almost verging on that IPA, right? Because I consider a 60 starting of an IPA kind of range. So
depending on your what's the perceived IBUs,
right? Yeah, of course. Like you said,
because we want to get silly. I could make 100 IBU beer that you would think was an American pale ale.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that it's more of a perceived IBU or bitterness should be in the 30s to 50s. So 30 is pretty low in the sense that that's almost like a Hefeweizen or wheat beer, or
I mean, you got your
pale pilsners, or right. What's one?
You got your blonde ale right there.
Yeah, blonde ale, right?
15 to 28. So
yeah,
just above a blonde ale.
You're just above a blonde ale, right? So I mean, it's just a hair more bitter than what you're looking at already. The other one I want to look at is the SRM. It is the amount of light that is refracted back at you, or refracted through an inch of beer, an inch of the liquid, or something like that, or a centimeter.
Yeah,
it's some sort of measurement. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Basically, what it boils down to is this is the color of the beer, how dark you're allowed to get the beer before you start to kind of fall outside of that category. And a 5 to 10 is pretty light, right? You can look in your blonde is 3 to 6, right? So it even overlaps with the blonde ale slightly on the low end. While a 10 would probably be like a little bit more color. Like when our last video, we had one of the other previous last months, with the Dale's Pale Ale, right? That had some color to it. So that one was probably really like closer to the 10 than it is on the 5, right?
Yep.
The last metric I'd like to cover is the ABV. And the ABV here is 4.5 to 6.2. Means we're not in a big beer situation, right? It is supposed to be kind of middle of the road, mild. 5% would be a good number. So if we aim for about 5 to 5.5%, chances are we'd hit within this range, would be okay, even given your fluctuations or your efficiencies, right? Because no brew process is like perfect.
The ABV, I think, is a very important aspect to look at here as something that differentiates the American pale ale from an IPA. You know, when you think about an IPA, you're usually looking 6 to 9%, 6 to 8% sort of range. American IPAs are usually a bit stronger, whereas an American pale ale is going to come in a little bit less strong in the alcohol category. And that combined with the flavor, where it's a little less bitter and a little more hop flavor, is really where you start to see the two big defining characteristics between an American pale ale and an IPA. Is that hop flavor and bitterness and the amount of alcohol.
All right, so let's move over to your recipe calculator and let's talk about how we pull those together. So now we have an idea. We've tried to talk over what the American pale ale should be-ish. APA, there you go. All right. So units, yes, gallons, pounds, ounces, that's perfect. It even has a little style. So let's throw a style in there and see if that throws us off at some point.
We need an 18.
American, there we go.
B. This right here, once again, is coming from the BJCP guidelines right here. We have an 18B American Pale Ale, 18B American Pale Ale.
Right. Boil time, 60 minutes. If you guys haven't, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more, 60-minute boil time is basically necessary for you to get your bittering hops into a good spot.
It's the isomerization of the alpha acid.
Brew house efficiency, 75%. That seems a little low for us. I know we tend to get a little higher. I think we were in the 80 to 82 range, but let's just shoot for 75 because I think most brewers are going to see that 75. What that'll mean is that chances are we're going to come out with a higher ABV, right? So, a little extra alcohol, I don't think it's going to hurt too bad. Batch size in the fermenter should be 5.5. We probably need to put that at 5. We usually try to typically hit like 5 dead on. We don't mind losing some in the transfer process. Boil size, we usually 7.5. So 7.5 is fine. Post boil is usually
5.5 to 5.
Yeah, we lose a little bit at the bottom of that guy. Not too bad.
Yeah, use a little to the kettle drum.
All right, so fermentables. Let's just give it a base malt, right? So base malts give us a strength of, yeah, of. So base malts are used to get you some decent amount of enzymes, right? The enzymatic activity that you're looking for, and the amount of sugar that you can extract from those grains are really what you're looking for. Now, I know that Cody and I typically enjoy either American two row, or there we go, pale. There we go, pale two row, 1.8. The reason why you do something so low is that the more you roast your malts, the less enzymatic activity you're going to have in there, therefore destroying what you're looking for. So as a base malt, you're really looking for something 2-row, even 6-row, if you want crazy, kind of older styles. I know we use some like Maris Otter stuff, but in general, just a lighter lava bond, right?
Yeah. The 6-row is really good if you're trying to do a beer that's going to have a lot of adjuncts. So things that are not malt in them. 6-row has a lot more diastatic power. That's the enzymes he was talking about. 6-row has a lot more of that, so it can really make sure that you get your proper amount of enzymatic activity to get your original gravity that you're looking for.
Let's see. So let's just throw a number in here. What, I don't know, like 9,
maybe 8,
7?
9 pounds.
7?
I think 8 pounds could be a good start, and then throw in a little bit of specialty.
Let's start with 8 pounds and just see kind of where that throws us as far as the calculators. And then obviously we need to add some more fermentables, right? So add another row. I think it's in the bottom.
There it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Add another one.
There you go.
We want to throw in a little bit of some.
So the next step, right, is really kind of what flavors. Right now we got the base idea. What kind of funky flavor? I think we're going American. I would like to do something more traditional, right?
You want to do like a traditional Cascade Centennial?
Yeah, let's kind of go outside, because I know we tend to go like put our own like Bell Brothers twist on some things. Let's kind of go this like more traditional style or a feel to it. Or you want to throw, we could do the Bell Brothers twist and go Australian.
I want to go Australian. Let's go Australian.
You want to go Australian? All right.
I like Australian.
So Australian hops can play into some of those funny citrus, but I say funny citrus in the sense of like key lime. They can go melon. They can go kind of lemon, citrus kind of pieces. So they're rather than like orange.
They're less orange and grapefruit and more tropical fruit, key lime sort of flavors.
Yeah,
they're different.
Yeah, you can kind of get to play around with that. And so let's see, as far as an additional malt to that, how would we play around with something maybe a little sweeter, a little lighter?
I was thinking we could do maybe a little bit of caramel 10 and then maybe some aromatic Munich.
Aromatic, really? Because I was thinking maybe something in the just to throw a little bit of a wrench in it, but wheat.
A little wheat. What? Thinking like some light wheat, a little bit of.
I'm just trying to find something in that grass malty golden like honey. We could do honey malt. Yeah, straight honey malt. I think would be kind of interesting.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean caramel 20 wouldn't be too bad, or caramel 10 wouldn't be too bad as far as like a pure sweet. But I'm thinking like honey malt, you really truly get that like honey kind of aspect to it. I think that would play really well with some of those really funny, funky tropical fruits, right? Honey and tropical fruit, I think would play really well. I could see
that, yeah, like a honey and a melon sort of thing.
Yeah, just pick the top. Yeah,
I think that's close to
figure it out when
we have at the store.
Yeah.
Do we want to go a little light with this? So maybe go a pound or a half pound?
No, I'm thinking like 2 pounds.
2 pounds.
I mean,
puts us at a 5.46 ABV.
I mean,
a little on the strong side.
No, it's right in the middle, right? I would shoot about 5.5, right? It's 4.5, 6.5. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just worried if we get too much of that honey malt, when it gets really honey flavored, it can be a little wonky tasting.
Yeah.
But I think this is a decent start.
So do you want to back that out then and do like a caramel 10 with the honey and do a pound of each? So you still get some of the sweetness from the caramel 10, or are you thinking more just like base malt and only add another pound of honey?
I think if I was going to change it, I would do 1 pound of caramel 10, 1 pound of honey. I do like the idea of the honey. And I think we need a little more sweetness to really help amp up those tropical flavors.
Right.
If you're going to go for an Australian hopped American Pale Ale, I think you need to have a little bit of those.
I know typically
really make it play well.
Right. I know that we typically go more reserved. I'm thinking for the B3 brews and the experimentals, I say we tweak them up to 11. So leave it at 2 pounds. If it's not good, right, we'll get to the other side of it and we'll be like, yep, see, you saw the video.
Curtis made the call.
Interesting, it was a bad call, right?
we get an interesting review video when we go,
right?
Who?
Or maybe we can find some stuff and actually get like some crazy radical brews up the other side of it. So
I'm cool with that. Let's go interesting.
Yeah, so let's throw some hops in there, right? So you got Galaxy or Amarillo. What was the one like German? There was an Australian special, right? We had a hard time finding that one again, though. We only got like one bag.
Crown Vic or whatever. I think it was
Crown Vic. I really liked that one. Like that one had some really interesting.
That was the pear one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had some like sweet pear flavors to it.
Pear notes.
Do a Google search of like Australian hops.
If I can spell here, there we go. Australian hops.
There you go. Okay.
There you go.
Just straight, simple, easy.
Top 8 hops from Australia. Galaxy.
Right there it is. Right. And Galaxy is really good for like baseline bittering hops. So let's go with that as our base.
We can start there.
Bittering. Oh, okay. I was gonna look at some other ones, but yeah, let's start with Galaxy. So
we can start with Galaxy as our bittering because we know that is a good bittering hop. Right there, 14.25 is the average alpha acid.
Big alpha acid.
Big alpha acid. Real easy to bitter with.
Super easy to bitter. Yeah. I mean, like what? 1 ounce? Pellet.
Maybe not even an ounce.
60 minutes.
I'm thinking we're gonna go half an ounce.
Right. Yeah. Boom. There you go. 30. I'm already on the high end of the IBUs.
Yeah, that hits. That's right about the middle, right?
Guidelines. 30 was top end. Oh no, you're right.
30 to 50.
Okay,
so we're right on the bottom.
We have the bottom.
Right on the bottom. We got some room to wiggle with when we add in our flavoring, because our flavoring will add some bitterness. Not a lot. Mm-hmm. You get a lot less bitterness out of your flavor hops, but it will add some, and we can always move that number around.
Well, bump it up to 1. I'm interested to see what 1 would do for us here.
It's probably going to come in near 60.
Launch it.
Yeah.
58. So that's IPA range.
Right, so I mean, half an ounce. It's a real strong hop. We can start with half an ounce, and we can add some back in as we go.
I swear we have half an ounce of Galaxy in the supplies.
We may have a half ounce sitting around. I'll check it before we go to the store.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. All right, so let's go back and take a look at some other Australian hops.
Let's look over. So it says fruity, juicy with passion fruit or peachy or orange. That definitely goes with what I usually expect from a Galaxy. Juicy and fruity with a little bit of peachy or passion fruit.
Yeah, it tends to be a little more of the
Australian Cascade. I don't think we want to bother with that. Similar to Cascades.
Yeah, we're going to stay away from that, right?
Yeah.
Our families. Vic's Secret is what they're looking at.
That was the one we did before, I think, was the Vic's Secret.
Yeah. You want to type that in and see if that shows up in the other one? Because I would love, the pineapple. That one was just a radically interesting one to play with. Yeah, it was good. If they have
Vic's Secret.
Oh, they do have Vic's Secret. Nice. Cool. If we can get that, if we can find that at the store, I would be wickedly happy about that one. As far as 20-minute flavoring hop, probably 1. Oh, make sure it's pellet, not whole leaf.
Oh, yep. Fix that.
Yeah. And IBUs have jumped. So maybe half
15.5. Yeah.
Oh, that explains it. Half an ounce. Yeah. Okay. So we got a little bit of room to grow.
And we could always use, with how strong Vic's Secret is, we could always come back and use that as like a flame out hop. So put that in just right at the end there.
Just to kind of give it the aroma.
Just to really give the aroma a little bit of the flavor out of it. Or do a half ounce here and a half ounce of flame out. Let's see if BSG.
There you go, BSG. Because that's what they carry at.
That's one of the suppliers,
right? Yes. Yeah, so that should give us a better call of what's actually going to be available there.
Mm-hmm. Australian Vic's Secret and Galaxy is what they're showing right now.
Wow, that's it, huh? Okay, well, I think we've made a pretty good choice on those. Yeah, we could do another. Let's take a look at the recipe and look at add a flame out of the rest of the Vic's.
Vic's Secret.
Now, a flame out or a whirl hop is done at whirlpool. There you go. Right at the very end, you turn off your heat after you're done boiling. You add your hops. You'll spin it all up, and you're basically making like a light tea out of it. because the heat's off, right? The temperatures are slowly dropping, and you really extract, I think, more of the aromatics, the oils and the acids purely without turning those into bitters. So you gain a lot more of the aromatics out of those hops than you would normally because of the way that they're being produced. Now, 20-minute one, right? The 20-minute hop is for a flavor, right? That's really kind of an enhancement of the flavors that you're going to get out of the beer. We're a little high on IBUs.
We're right at the top end of the range, but I think with the Canadian honey malt in there, our perceived bitterness will be a bit lower. So I think we could even overshoot the IBU range a little and still probably be okay because we've got a slightly stronger
we're bringing up some of that
malt profile here.
I like it. Cool. All right. So that's good with me. We'll talk water chem. We could do some water chem, or you can do some work on that. Yeast, I don't know, just straight, probably typical 001. In the sense that it doesn't add any funky flavors.
Oh, doing it wrong.
WLP.
Whiskey, White Labs, California Ale.
White Labs, there you go. California Ale yeast, yeah. It's pure, right? It won't impart any kind of other flavors to our pale ale, so we'll really get to taste the hops kind of cleanly along with that malt backbone.
So the reason why we're able to pick all of this, and the hops in particular, is because of this cool sheet over here. Or these are the yeast anyways. What are we doing? How do we read this, Cody?
So here, you have your yeast strains. So you have your ales, your lagers, your specialty Belgian, wild yeast. Once you pick a strain, it has a description telling you a little bit about what it tastes like. And that's all somewhat helpful. But the most important part of this sheet is over here, where you have your attenuation, your alcohol tolerance, and then these little markers here. Each of these markers, where is the key down here, will tell you most preferred, favorable, not appropriate. That is important to know, and it's very helpful because you can go up here and see which style you're going for across this top chart. And it'll tell you if the beer you're using, or the yeast you're using, is very favorable, somewhat favorable, or not at all favorable.
So where's our American Pale Ale for the...
Let's see, we have American Cream. Where's APA?
Right there.
American Style Pale Ale. Very favorable, 2 style.
And that, of course, is our...
WLP 001. There you go. Your California Ale yeast. As you can see from looking at this chart, California Ale yeast works for a lot of things. That's because clean fermentation profiles work really well for a lot of different stuff.
So we've got mash guidelines. This is starting mash thickness.
1.75 quarts a pound. That sounds about right. So it would be...
Grain temperatures are room temperature, so degrees Fahrenheit should be 70.
Yeah, grain temp. 70.
Right. Chances are, yeah. It's been warm, so not too bad. And we're brewing tomorrow, right?
That was my plan.
Okay.
We're doing not strike water, but fusion. 17.5.
And starting temp should be, but usually your water is probably a little lower than room. So like ground probably 40 degrees, 50 degrees, something like that.
50. Target temp 2.
Oh, we didn't look at body. Do you want to go back and look at the guidelines real quick? It'll body. Mouthfeel.
Mouthfeel, medium to light medium body, moderate to high carbonation without astringency and harshness.
So medium light to medium, 54?
Yeah, let's say 54 degrees. Probably.
So let's say our mash should be running 154 then. Yeah, fly sparge. So that's our recirculating sparge that we do roughly 3 gallons, 168.
Yeah, and we're gonna need more water than 3 gallons. I'm putting 3 here because that's how much we're gonna take off of this. We're probably gonna put in closer to 4 or 5 gallons. We're just gonna actually harvest 3 gallons of sparge water when we're done. Because it takes a little more water to sparge than you put in more water than you get out because some of it stays in the mash tun with the grains and everything else.
Well, in our case, right, we use fluid dynamics in the sense that we sparge over the top with the hot water, and allow that to, because it's lighter, right? The gravity is lighter. It stays on top, but it pushes down on the rest of the actual sparge, the mash, and we're able to extract the heaviest liquid from the bottom. So we're pulling the most sugars from the bottom while putting clean water on top, but you have to keep backfilling that to keep the pressure up and high enough so that you're consistently pulling out the best liquid that you can. And then some of that first stuff, you're going to still wash off some of the grains. So in our process, we know that we're going to pull roughly 7.5 gallons total, right, of water, but we're going to probably end up putting in 5 or 6 gallons of water on top just to keep pushing everything down. So we keep on rinsing and washing those grains appropriately.
Gravity still looks good. IBU, SRM, everything's in the range here.
So what we'll do is we'll talk about that. Cody, you probably want to look up the extra pale ale. I think
that's
the IBUs. Never tell me the IBUs are probably just about right for that, kind of pumping up that bitterness.
Grab that.
So we store all of our
Google Drive, but it's super handy. So here's where we store all of our quality control sheets for our beers. So never tell me the IBUs, which is our
extra pale ale.
And so you
and
can
the water
see here,
chemistry.
we got calcium chloride, Epsom salt, and lactic acid. 3.5 grams. So we're working with 3.5 grams.
Calcium chloride 2 grams.
Calcium chloride. Pretty sure we have anhydrous. 2 grams.
It did the unit calculations for you.
For me. It's handy, but no thank you. And finally, we have 7.28 grams of lactic acid.
We do it in grams because it's a lot easier to weigh in grams than to try to weigh in ounces.
Lactic acid. Boom. And that would be our approximate water chem for this one. Let's see. Is it gonna? Oh, it doesn't know the mash pH. It's gonna need
you'd have to know
water.
what your initial. Yeah, you'd have to know what your base water is. So
it's gonna need to know our water chem and all that.
So the reason why we add the Epsom salts and the calcium chloride, I think we've talked a bit about that, is more for the health of the yeast and the health of propagation, and then helping bump up some of those flavors. The lactic acid, on the other hand, is to make up for the lack of specialty malts, right? The high dark roast kind of malts that you would normally see. In your lighter beers, you need more lactic acid to bring the pH into the right area to maximize your enzymatic activity that you're getting out of that base malt, along with maximizing the usefulness of, well, the enzymes and also all of your extraction purposes, right? The more use, you get better extraction, better efficiencies that way. So by adding just a little bit of lactic acid to us, 7.8 seems like a lot compared to the other two, but in reality, it's like a dribble in the bottom of a glass. Like there's nothing there.
Not a whole lot.
No, and you just add that to your water chemistry into your, before you add your mash. So before you mash in, you'll see we'll put all of our water chemistry and get it all mixed up in there, and then we throw that in, and it helps kind of keep that efficiencies a lot higher. So we'll get closer to what we're actually expecting.
Yep.
Cool. I think this is everything. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned some more about this one. And for you guys, it'll be like 15 minutes to taste. In reality, this is almost a month out from our actual video.
Yep.
And now it's time to review the pale ale.
Yeah, look at that color though. Man, that is good stuff. I could pick up the hops back here, like without even getting into it. It's hoppy.
The hop definitely floats out nicely. You get a good pear and citrusy.
There is a little bit of maybe a pear or a citrusy kind of. I don't know. There's just hop bitterness to it. But
I call that little pear a little tropical-y pineapple. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Pineapple.
Little pear. Yeah, there it is. So it's citrus-ish. The acid, but it's not
pure citrus.
Yeah, pure citrus. So yeah, it's a good pineapple. I like that.
I think this definitely fits the idea we were going for. Was the tropical Australian American pale ale.
And there's a little bit of malt character behind it, so as you're smelling it, you're picking up a little bit of malt sweetness. It's not real strong, but you can tell that there is malt behind what's going on, really when you get into it. So.
Taste is great. That is the right amount of hops, just enough sweetness to really back up the tropical flavors. So it's, you smell the tropical, you taste it, you taste the tropical, you taste a little bit of malty sweetness. The honey does not quite taste like honey. It tastes more like a juicy, fruity sort of thing.
I'm thinking like a melon sweetness, right?
Yeah.
Like when you taste fruit in general, but like a melon behind it. The pear, right? There's a sweetness imparted from fruit, right? But it's not sugar, right? Honey is very sweet, but like, so I'm thinking melon kind of sweetness behind it is what it's sitting on there. You get this cool little pear set, and then the pineapple, tropical fruits. I'm really liking this. It's definitely different than like what you would traditionally think of like American style hops.
There's no like citrus and grapefruit peel. It's definitely hoppy, but it's got a light sweetness. It finishes nicely too. It's clean. When
Real
you're done,
smooth. You want to keep going back.
Yeah.
It has a sharp bite.
Yeah, it doesn't have a sharp bite. It doesn't finish gone. Like sometimes when you get one that's done with a little less malt backbone, it'll just be done. Like you take your sip, you get a hint of aftertaste, and then it leaves your mouth entirely, and you're done.
Right.
This one is definitely lingering. I have like a lingering, fruity, slightly acidic feel just through my whole mouth. It's very good. Makes me want to keep sipping. I think.
Yeah. I think
we nailed it.
Yeah, the bitterness is well balanced to it, in the sense that the bitterness with that sweet. I think that's what the finish is all about on that, is that there's just enough bitterness that it doesn't, as it goes into the aftertaste, after you've sipped it, the bitterness kind of helps to keep the flavors new and exciting without the sweet kind of overriding the palate and running it over. It's really enjoyable, crisp, clean. I think that's exactly what we're talking about with the yeast, right? The reason why we chose the yeast that we chose is that it doesn't impart any kind of flavors, any off flavors or off aftertaste. It just allows those hops to shine right through on that beer.
Yep. The other thing is this fits the ideal like summer refresher right now. I think this is working well because it's hot in here today, and this is nice.
Yeah, you know what I'm really interested in is getting a review from Dad.
Yeah,
you know,
he's our resident lover of very hoppy beers.
Yeah, right. The hophead, the resident hophead, like Dad, Dad, Grandpa, and Uncle Eric would be really cool to get them and come taste this, because the hop character is so completely different than like your traditional American set. Obviously, we chose New Zealand, Australia, right? Those tropical fruity hops, and so yeah, I'd be interested to say, oh wow, there's bitterness from the pale ale, but like, how does that compare to the American palate? This is dead on to what we were looking for.
This is exactly what we aim to make.
Yeah. So while the last box brew was the fuck up fairy was in full force, you got to see the B3 Experimental Brew just like
swing exactly the opposite way. Pendulum's back the opposite way. This hit on all cylinders across the board.
I think as far as a pale ale, enjoyability, uniqueness, I'm going to give this one a score of like a 9. Yes. I mean, there's probably some improvement, maybe clarity, maybe like CO2, you know, I don't know. There's some work on like delivery.
Fix the mouthfeel, just a hint.
Yeah, but I think in general, I'm all about this beer. Yeah, I like this beer.
Nails what I was wanting when we were talking about putting together an Australian American pale ale. It's got the good tropical flavors. I love that we were able to find that Vic secret because it's just got such a nice hop flavor.
Shout out Fermentations. Thanks so much.
Yep. And it mixes well with the gambrinous honey. So you got the honey malt mixing with the pear and pineapple notes, and it all comes together to work exactly the way we intended.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, this is good stuff. I'm looking forward. I'm glad we have a keg of this. I'm going to share the heck out of this. This is going to be great. I hope you enjoyed this full series of the B3 Experimental Brew. First one. If there's any comments, let us know. Please go and like, subscribe, and hit our YouTube channel. Look at our Facebook page. Give us a chat. We'd be happy to talk with you. Thanks so much for visiting us here at Bell Brothers Brewing.
This has been Engineers talking about beers.
Cheers. And so I put it on 20 PSI. I cranked it back up to 20 PSI, and I just opened up and let it rip for a while. Is there somebody knocking on your door?
Oh, it's a guy hammering on things.
Oh, God damn it.
You are recording.
Yeah, that's fine. You can hear the hammer. Yay. All right. We'll take takes between it, hopefully.
Remember, you don't have to say welcome, because it's and beer.
Right.